on databases. Last time we did have a discussion of these data and information. We looked at the characteristics of quality data, which is important. It's current, it's complete, it's relevant, it's consistent. We discussed that last time. Then we ended off with validate your data. So, you know, there's one abbreviation, GIGO. Have you heard about that? Yes, garbage in, garbage out. So, what what does that mean? Do any of you know what does garbage in, garbage out? What does it mean actually? Yeah, so it's yes. So if we create a program, you can create a program that calculates. Let's say I create a program that will calculate the average age of my class, and then I give it to everybody to fill in their ages, and then everybody is just funny, and the one will say he's 2 years old, and the other one will say he's 65, and the other one will say he's 95, and then at the end it says my average class age is 37, and then so the answer then is rubbish because what was put in was rubbish, and that's the garbage in, garbage out. So your program could be written perfectly, but if the people that type in the data types in nonsense, then your output will also be incorrect. So sort of to prevent that garbage in, garbage out, we can do stuff to validate our data. So my example, we can do a range check where we say, because I teach high school pupils, so I can say that the age must be at least more than 13 and the age must be at least less than, let's say, 21. So that you can't have anybody typing in too exuberant. They could probably still type in the wrong stuff, but then not easily. Because, you know, let's say somebody wants to type in 16 and by mistake he types in the one double. So you go 116 and then 116 goes in. If we do a range check, it will tell him, listen, this is too old. Then he'll realize, oh, I typed in the one double. And then he can type. So sometimes they don't do it maliciously. And then these validations could help you to just limit the errors. So you could have a range check that says that the input must be within a certain range. It could be a data type check, so that when you ask for integers, that it's only integers that's typed in. It can be a format check to just make sure that, like when you ask for an email, that the at is there. And if you ask for dates, that it's year first, then month, then day. And you could even have a check digit where you can check for like phone numbers and stuff and ID numbers to make sure that it is the right length and that everything is in, like phone numbers only 10 digits, ID numbers are 13 and so forth. So database design tips. These things not that very important, but it's something nice just to go through. So accessing and manipulating data. We could have manual data collection. That's where somebody just types in everything. When you ask somebody to type in the details, that would be that one. Or you can have electronic data collection where you sort of get information already from somewhere else. They use this a lot online nowadays. You know, when you want to register for if you go into a new website and they want you to register, then you can either click register or you can just continue with Facebook or your Google details. And when you click on that, you don't need to fill in everything. And that's this electronic part, because now they're just gathering it from that other website. You're basically giving Google and Facebook permission to give your data to that website so that you can just register quicker. So that's the two ways of gathering information. Qualities of valuable information. So when you decide, so this is sort of important for your pet as well. Don't put a field in your pet that you won't actually ever use. Don't ask the guy for his gender if you don't care what the gender is. If you're not going to use it in your program, then why put it there? And then, so look for which fields are specific for your application, and even look a bit forward to what your program might evolve to. What else might you need for that? So that's the type of things when you design a database. to think of that so that you create a database so that it can work for future developments, but that you're not just storing information just for the sake of it and then wasting hard drive space. All right, how to get information, have a source of truth. So just get it from the right place. Okay, there's some nice stuff to read through. Ugh, it's very boring. Standardize your data. So just make sure that however it's typed in, that it's the same. If you ask for the person for his grade, that it's typed in the same format, because these things, as we know with our code now, they are different. You can't now say if the grade is equal to 5, then only this one will work. And the people that typed in those ones, then it won't work. So just make sure that the way they type it in is standardized. Use effective names. So the names shouldn't stick with just table 1, table 2. Give it some names. Do not use spaces in the names. Try to use, they call it camel case. Start every second word with a capital letter. And then avoid abbreviations. Choose simple names. You don't want it very long. Choose descriptive names. Don't confuse this with long names. Descriptive could be very shortly, like if it's an integer, just start it with an I is fine. And then if it's the average, call it maybe average or even AVG. This avoid abbreviations. I don't necessarily agree with that one, but definitely descriptive. So the things that goes into those variables or into those fields, you should sort of, the field name should give you a guide for that. It should be simple. You don't want spaces inside. Do not use numbers in the name. That maybe not, depends on what. Sometimes you could maybe want the number in there, but yeah, that's sort of not too serious. Do not use strange characters. Other than underscores are fine. Strange characters, they mean the exclamations and hashes. Generally, some databases don't like that, and you might get errors. And then use a consistent naming pattern. So if you always going to have the data type first character and then 3 characters to guide you, then always follow that pattern. All right, manipulating and grouping data. So that's sort of what I already explained to you, sort of how tables work. So I'm not going to worry too much about that. There they just show you how you could design something. Not very important. Be careful with calculated fields. So yesterday I helped some of the grade 12s, and they only then after, like some of them came to me and said, yeah, they're basically done. They just need to do something small. And then after looking at the tables, I told them, ish, this is a bit tough. So they're going to not change it because they're too far gone. But technically, their tables are actually wrong. I would have penalized them quite a bit marking their pets because they've got like calculated fields. You don't want to store, like in this case, you don't want average as a field, because average you can calculate from these 4. So because you're storing these 4, this one is a calculated field. The same as if you've got an ID number and a date of birth and the age field, then you sort of only need ID number, because with the ID number you can know when is his date of birth, you can get it from there, and you can get the age. So both of the other two can be calculated from the ID field. So I would not have that then. So stuff like that, to just, whenever you can calculate it from somewhere else, you don't want to store it, because now you're using RAM space and you're using hard drive space. All that space is there storing a value that you could just calculate. So that is something to not have in your table. Okay, then this is questions, nice interesting questions to go through. All right, creating a simple database. So you get RAD software. RAD is this word, rapid application development. So that's creating a program quickly, basically. And like Microsoft Access, they've got lots of wizards. You can create queries and forms and reports, everything with wizards, which makes it much quicker. And that's this rapid application development part. Just know about that. This part here, very important. All right, these key terms you need to know. They're going to ask it a lot of times. So a field, as I explained, is basically a column. So it's a piece of data of a subject in a record. The primary key is a field that uniquely identifies each record. Remember we said something like a ID number or telephone number would be primary keys. A composite key is if you've got a primary key, or let's say you've got a table, but there is not one of the fields that's a primary key. So in all of the fields you've got duplications. In all the fields they've got duplications. So sorry. So let's say you've got a list of fields, and in each of the fields there's duplication, so not one field can be identified as a primary key. So what you do then, if you take a combination of two of them, and then it's unique, then it becomes a composite primary key. So the combination between the two of them makes them unique. So not a good example, but something that could maybe work is, let's say you've got a first name and a last name. And there are first names that's the same, and there are last names that are the same, but there's nowhere that somebody's first name and last name is the same. So then you combine the two, and both of them becomes a primary key. Then it's called a composite key. And then the combination of the two makes it unique. So that's that one. Foreign key we'll get to, but the foreign key is the primary key of one table that's in another table that we'll use to create a relationship with, which is there. So that's when the two tables are, it's called a, if it's here, no, it's not here, a relational database. Then it means your tables inside are related to each other, they are linked. Then we got a foreign key. So I will explain that a little bit later when we get to it, to create a relationship. Data types of fields that I think we know, either text, number, date and time, yes and no for Boolean. A record is a row, like I explained, and a table is a database table is composed of records and fields to hold data. And then each table in a database holds data about a different but related subject. So it's like our staff and our students and our what do we have? Subjects and assets. So each and textbooks. So each of those would be a table inside a database. All right, that's our key terminologies. Yeah, any questions on them? All right, then I'll explain to you how to create a database. That we will do. Designing the, well, yeah, in any case. Designing the tables. How would you look at a table? Creating, all right. That just explained that, all very interesting. The fields. So there is that activity you can follow through to just help you a bit. Mock data is just make up data basically. Adding something to your tables. Editing, straightforward, deleting. I think that's sort of the end. Setting up relationships. Alright, this one I'm going to leave for now. We don't want to, so I wouldn't suggest you to do relationships as yet, because that would just, it makes your database difficult to work with. Alright, I think that's the last chapter, then we're done with this. Yeah, alright. So that's our database chapter for theory for the chunk of this term. And then here at the bottom, they'll also just help you to create a database and all that stuff. All right. So I'm going to quickly now, yeah, so all of you should actually have Office 365. I think all the schools, they did actually get from the department, they got licenses. So everybody should have that. But so you open Access and then go blank database. Once you go blank database, First part, I'll ask you to give a name for your database, so you can call it whatever you want to. I'm going to call it database 3 just because. What you do want to do, however, so importantly for your pet, don't go create immediately. You want to go there and just click create and just go for it. Go to the folder, and when you choose a place where you want to save it, you need to save it in your project. But the other important thing, this data, the save the type, choose the older one, 2002 to 2003 one. Choose that one. Then it makes it a .mdb Microsoft database. Otherwise, if you keep it on this newest version, it's called a ACCDB, and then sometimes our link doesn't work with it. So create your database in this 2002 to 2003 format. Then you say OK, and then you say create. All right, then it's a blank space like this. All right, so with our database, you'll start with the table 1. It looks like it's saved, but it's not actually saved yet. So what you do, you'll see there's like a triangle and a ruler. Click on that one, that's the design view. If you click on it, it's going to ask you to save the table. Let's say I'm going to do a staff table. So I'm going to call mine staff. Then I'm going to say OK. Now the table is saved, and now inside here, if you went to design view like what I clicked, in this part you'll see this is all the fields you want. So now you must think of what will I store. So maybe I do want the ID number of each of them. But auto number means it will automatically get a number, and that's not what I want. So I want to just make it a text. Remember, ID and telephone number, you actually want text, it won't actually be numbers. So make it text, and then by field size, you can say like for ID number, we know it needs to be 13 digits. Then we go to the next one, which is maybe the first name, F name. That is also short text, and the person's field size again. The longest name I can think of is, let's say, around about 30 characters. You just put 30 there. Then we've got a last name. That will also be text. Last name is maybe 50 characters long. And then let's put a... So we've got an ID number. So technically, you don't need a date of birth. You don't actually need a gender even. You can get gender also from the ID number. But let's say we want gender there. And then let's say we're going to go male, female. So it's still short text, and female is 6 characters long. And then let's say I want age, just because I want a number in here, so we can make it a number. And let's say appointment date. No, when somebody starting date, start is date, starting date, and that will be of a date and time. So just now, so this is how you click all the fields you want, and you choose their data types. And if it's text, just change the field size to the correct number of characters of the longest one that you might need. Once you're done with this part, then you'll see there where the triangle was, there's now like a block one. And then you click on that one. It's going to ask you, do you want to save it? You say yes. And now you'll see there's the information, and now there's all my fields. So then you can type the person's ID number and his first name and his last name, the gender that is in, his age, and then the start date you can then also then choose. So you can then type in some different people just to test this. Those of you that do CAT will know there's a way that you could go and put combo boxes here. You can use validation rules, like when you go to the design view again, here at the bottom, input mask and validation rule and text. So the CAT people know how to use that. But for IT, don't do that. And for your pet, don't do that. These things that you do there, are they needed? Yes. But we're going to do that with Delphi code. So in our Delphi code, we're going to make sure that there's a nice input mask, and we're going to make sure that the validation is done. So all of these settings here, we're going to do in Delphi. even the cat people will know, like by the lookup, you can create like a combo box here. Again, don't do that in this place because our people won't use this screen. They're going to use our screen we're going to create. So the only thing you do here is just create your tables. Once you're done with this table, just click save. You can go create and you just choose table again. And now you're on your second table. Then you go triangle again. You give it a name. Maybe this is students. You say okay. And then there you choose all your fields. You give it data types. And then you just triangle of the blocks again, save. You'll have the fields, type in some stuff. And then you've got your tables that you want. You just click save and you close this. And then just make sure the database is inside your project folder. And that's how that would go. Let me just like I'm gonna open a new one. Oh, wait, I can use this one. Let me just delete all this stuff. Alright. So the following components only for PAT purposes, exams and tests, this will already be given to you and already be set up. Alright, so you're gonna do new components now. So our first one we're gonna need, you go ADO, and we're gonna need a connection. And you can just drag it across. You're gonna need an ADO connection. This ADO connection is the component that will actually link our Delphi program to Microsoft Access. So this one creates the connection between our program and Access. Then the next one you need is an ADO table. So the ADO table, you're going to need one for each of the tables that you're going to use. So if you've got a staff table, so I'm talking about your Access now. Remember in my Access, I created a staff table and a student table. So then I'll need two of them. So you will put an ADO table for each of the tables in your database. This is for the database itself, which you'll always only have one database of. And then these are for each of the tables you're going to have. And then later on, when we create queries, so that's not for now, but later on I'll show you how we can do SQL queries. Then you're going to need an ADO query as well. So ADO query is when we use SQLs to interact with our database. We're going to need that. All right, then the next piece that we actually going to want to display in is called a DB grid, DBG, and then you'll see there's a TDB grid. So drag one of them across. So your TDB grid is where we're going to see all our information. Then your ADO connection links with the database. ADO table will then grab the tables out of this database. So this one connects with the database, Microsoft Access. These two will connect with this one to extract the tables from there. And now we just need a link between these two because we want to display there, but the information is inside these two. So to do that, we've got a data source. So if you start with DAT, there's a T data source. So we just need a T data source as well. Now, all these small components here at the bottom, just have a look. When I play my program, they're gone. So you don't need to worry about them, where they are. You don't need to hide them or anything, only if they may be in the way. But otherwise, sometimes I just put them on top of here, just to be, because sometimes you've got like lots of other buttons and edit boxes here. And then maybe leave these ones like in the middle. They can be scattered. They don't need to be neat, because as soon as you play it, they're gone. So they are just for the connections. All right, so with these ones, I think you'll probably look at the recording again when you do this, and I'll guide you. If you struggle, you can just ask again. But these following steps are relatively important for your pet. So step one, our ADO connection, you go up, and then let me just see if we can, I can't move it away. Okay, wait, there's gone. All right, so what we do on our ADO connection, there's one of the properties called connection string. You're going to double click on that. And then on the connection string, there is all right. So on our connection string, you go to build. We choose our Jet4. You say next. Then here by database name, you just go by the ellipse, and then you just go to your folder, which is there. Then hopefully your database is there. You just select your database, you say open. You can say test connection. It should always work actually, but then you just say okay, and you say okay. So we've done the connection string now. With this one, make your life a lot easier. And when you go down, there's one that asks login prompt. Just untick that one to make it false. Then it doesn't ask you a question the whole time. So that's very irritating. All right, then we save. Then as I said, so now the link is created between this component and Microsoft Access and our database. So that's created. Now on this table now, so you'll see I used the previous database that I had there, the tour something. So now I can go to my ADO table. Now you go to your connection part, you'll see it's even red. It's just called connection. If you click on it on the drop down box, choose ADO connection 1. So the connection we just did now. So I'm saying this table will get its information from there. And then if you scroll right down, there's one that's got table name. If you click on the drop down box again, then you can choose which one you want to work with. So my table 1 will be for participants. Then I choose participants. Then you can just go up right on top. There's an active field. Just say active must be true. Then you can go to your other table, do the same. You choose your connection. So I choose connection 1. I go to my table name. I choose now my other table. And then I also make this one active. With my connection, I just click on that and I also just go top and it is connected. That's fine. So now the connection connected to the database and my two tables connected to this one to gather the information. Now my data source, that is, you need to connect this now to one of these two for what you want to display in this grid. So let's say I'm going to display table 1 stuff for now. We can change this with code though. So this is just a startup. So by my data set, I'm going to choose ADO table 1, saying I want the first table's information to be displayed there in this data source. And now you click on your DB grid. And then you'll see in his property, there's one called data source. And then there you choose your data source 1. And then you should see all your information just miraculously appear. And then you're so happy when you see all your stuff that's there. Yes. Yes, ask me. All right. So yes, so now it's all connected. So now comes our button parts. So we can have now buttons and you can have components here. So let's say we've got a labeled edit. So it depends what you want to do now. I'm going to just do a display for now. Let's just to get some information being displayed here. So we can even, maybe let me show you something else that's maybe nice. So instead of using a button, let's remove the button. We're not going to use a button today. So if we take this labeled edit, so obviously you can have lots of them. This would make your, even for you guys that did the add and the change, the update, this makes it a lot easier if you do it this route, where you create labeled edits for each of the fields you've got. So let me just expand this one. So I've got a flight, what's this, flight number 2. So this would be the, I'm just going to call it flight 2. And this would be the return And then obviously you can have labeled edits for all the rest. I'm not going to do all of them now. Let's just add one more, maybe for surname. So we can have the surname. So to make it nice, maybe we want to, as soon as we click on any of these things, it must put the records information in there for us. So that, let's say we want to change Slater's information. You can just click there, it will have all the data already there, and then we can just change it as we want it. So let's see. So what we do then is, you click on, because we want, as soon as the person clicks on the grid, we want that information to be displayed here. So you click on the grid, then we can go to the events part, and then you'll see there on cell click. Then we can double click by events. The DB grid cell click. Now it's, if somebody clicks there, it's gonna do something. And now we can say what we want happening. Now in our case, do you agree? We want to take this information and put it into that field. So that's what I want. I want to take this flight no 2L and put it in there, and the flight no return in there, and the surname I want to put in there. So the only thing you do here is you can literally say your, I didn't rename that stuff now. What's this thing? This should be labeled edit 1, I think. I'm not going to change the code now because I see my time's running out. So obviously you'll change the components to look better, but I'm going to keep it now labeled edit 1. In my text property, I want to put the value, and then you could just say from which component are we working? Do you agree? This information we see here is our ADO table 1. So you just say your ADO table 1, and then in square brackets inside quotes, you just put the field name that you want to put in edit box 1. So in edit box 1, I want this thing that's flight node 2EL. So you just say there flight node 2EL. I think it's called that. Okay, before I do the rest, let's quickly just play this. Let's just see. So now you'll see there's all the information. Now as I click on one of them, let's say I click on this one. You see now it's in there. So even if I click this and I buy Etienne, it will put his flight number in there, the PA123. And if I click on Francois, it will have my SA532 already in there. As you click on any of these, the flight numbers change. So just like that, you can now just add more code. So in my other labeled edit, 2.text, that is my ADO table 1. And then the field I want to display in there is my flight number return. Should be there. And then the third one, I think it was the surname. So I will do 3. The text property, we want to put my ADO tables 1's information called surname. So now what's nice here, as soon as you click, then all the information gets typed in already for you. So then if you do that change button, like that you've got in the textbook, if you click on that, you could just extract from here. So you don't need to use input boxes. You just extract from here to change which ones you want to change and whatever else you want to do. So that all I will show you next time. Next time I'll show you exactly how we can do a nice edit and an insert and a delete, and then some displays to maybe sort this alphabetically, and then use it to maybe count how many people are there, count the total tour cost paid, to do different calculations. And you'll see all of this is very similar to arrays. You could even see here with the code wise, it sort of even looks like an array when it goes into the square brackets. So we use it a lot like arrays in this sense, where we're going to have a loop looping through it, looking for the ones we want to, and so forth and so forth.